Aina, and I'll be doing a speech on healthcare discrimination against people of color. Basically, as the world progresses and changes, some beliefs, I believe, are hard to shake, such as racism. Racism is very systematic, and it just passes on through history and in the present time. In healthcare, many people of color often feel neglected as their cries of pain are ignored by the physicians and nurses. For example, when the number of deaths of black women during birth is very high compared to white people, it shouldn't be that way, because a lot of women, when they give birth, the doctors do not listen to them when they're in pain or that they need medicine, because they believe, and this is a past thing that is proven false, but a lot of people in the past thought black people didn't feel pain, so they were used a lot for experiments. And I just believe there needs to be an understanding within the medical field that all people's concerns matter. In the past, there was a lot of mistreatment of people of color, and the history of racism has continued throughout the years. Racism in healthcare is a major problem. It could be internalized, interpersonal, or systemic. And in the healthcare field, it's more systemic because it's not outright said. It's more something that's felt by people. This is just some images of doctors and people protesting, saying that there needs to be more unity in healthcare, that everybody matters, basically. And these are more images as well. And this is another image of basically how a doctor sees black people, basically that they're nothing, that they just see through them. In the article, A Systemic Review of the Extent and Measurement of Healthcare Provider Racism, physicians are less likely to have positive perceptions of black patients than white, including compliance. It is also found that physicians have lower trust in non-white patients compared to white. And it also showed race influenced the level of treatment a person should receive. Also from an article called Racism and Determination in Healthcare Providers and Patients, it's also brought up that blacks and many other minority groups in the United States experience more illness, worse outcomes, and premature death due to negligence in the healthcare field. And basically that's because of the history of racism. White physicians in the past, especially in the South, but there's racism in both the South. White physicians had the power to influence the public. They were held very high. Basically, in the past, slaves were treated as masters, since doctors refused to care for them. In the past, slaves were treated by their masters because often doctors refused to treat them or even care for them. But even if they did come, they didn't really give them the proper care that they deserved. A lot of people thought black people felt no pain and were genetically different than white people. They were often used for experiments, and slaves were always readily available, so that's why they were used. And they weren't thought of as a person at the time. For example, James Sims, he's the father of gynecology. Well, this is just the charts I found online, basically showing the amount of women who died from maternal birth. About 243% black women pass away from childbirth, and this is the maternal mortality rate. It's about 41% for that chart. But this is basically about James Sims. He was the father of gynecology. He's very famous. He has a statue in New York City, but a lot of people are trying to get his statue torn down because in order for his accomplishments in science, he used enslaved black women, performed surgeries on them, and didn't put no anesthesia on them because they thought black people had no pain. But even though he did that, he's still considered like a great person by everybody. There was also the Tuskegee experiments performed by the U.S. government. 400 black men were taken into a camp, were told they were going to be given free health care and that they were going to just get taken care of for anything basic, but they were injected with syphilis, the STD, and they went untreated for years, and their kids, their wives, and everybody caught it and stuff and passed away from it. And then there's Henrietta Lacks. She is a very important person in science, but she doesn't even know her contribution because she passed away about 10 months after being diagnosed with cancer, and without her knowledge, her doctor took her tumor out of her body and used it to grow cells, and the cells that they use are used in the polio vaccines that we have today. often used in other medical practices that we have today. So they call her cells the first line of immortal cells because her cells were the only ones at the time that replicated. Nobody else's cells replicated. And they basically, the doctor who did it, he lied about it, and they renamed the cells HELE, I think, and basically it was into like late 1980s or 90s that they published a publishing about it, and basically everybody found out that they were lying this whole time.
What's her name?
Henrietta Lacks. I believe the solutions to racism in the healthcare field, there needs to be more minorities who work in the healthcare field, even though this is very hard to achieve because there is racial disparities between patients and people of color who work in healthcare. A lot of patients devalue the people's credentials. Even if you're a doctor, you're a black doctor, they think you're a food service worker, a CNA, or like a janitor. They don't believe that you're the doctor in the room, or they want a white person in the room. And basically, this is just like a comic image saying, basically like rude comments people can say to doctors of color, like you don't look old enough to be a doctor, wow, your English is very spoken good. And then there's less than 9% of people of color physicians, and less than 15% of nurses and nurse practitioners are people of color. So I just believe for us to fight for racism and healthcare to stop, I just believe that there needs to be a raise of people who can fight for that in healthcare. But there's such low numbers because it's not like a welcoming job field sometimes. And basically, also I stated from the article, experiences of workplace racial discrimination among people of color that I'm sorry, I said that. I also believe there needs to be educational courses in college and in job work and in your jobs, that there needs to be like a training course on why racism in the healthcare field is bad, basically teaching people to understand other people's cultures and not to bash other people. In conclusion, racism is very prevalent, and especially with what's going on today with the Black Lives Matter movement and stuff, I just believe that it's important to end. Healthcare workers are supposed to be compassionate for everybody, and everyone deserves the same level of care no matter what you are. Thank you.